Hello, everyone out there in the void. Phoebe Rizzo's here to talk to you once more. If there is anyone else out there in the void, I figured after October some views would be dropping down, and here we are, alone in the void again. Which is kind of a shame, since last time I was trying to signal boost a movie a little bit with the Limehouse Golem, and so far no one's really given a glance to it. It's a lesser known movie, so I did figure that might be an issue, so today looking into something a little bit better known. Carrie. Ah, Carrie. Stephen King's first novel and Stephen King's first movie. 1976, which is, wow, 44 years ago now. How does it hold up? Actually, it doesn't hold up too bad at all, really. I mean, there's a few things that are dated, but heck, even the wardrobes didn't look too outlandish, at least when compared with Sorority House Massacre, which was so dazzlingly 80s, it was distracting. This one, no, not really too much at all in that department. Though I will say, these days you're probably not going to see a gym teacher slapping the shit out of some kids. That part probably wouldn't be as much today without someone getting sacked, but 70s? Anyway, so the story of Carrie is pretty well known at this point, but if anyone who doesn't, Carrie is a loner, doesn't fit in with anyone, and has an overly religious mother to the point of crazy town. The then you've been bad, so go to your prayer closet and ask for forgiveness type. And she is played by Piper Laurie and delightfully over the top. The mother. Carrie is played by Sissy Spacek, who does a very good job at being an outcast character while still being sympathetic. It's either the problem you usually have with a character like this is if you're so far of an outcast, it's either it's non-believable that you're an outcast because you're too likable, or the audience can't sympathize with you because you're too much of an outcast. This one, Sissy Spacek does a good job with being awkward, but without being off-putting. You can kind of see why people don't get her, given her upbringing and her social awkwardness, but from an outside viewer perspective, you can sympathize with her, especially since you can see her home life. So it does a very good job in that regard. Now, Carrie is developing psychic powers, particularly telekinesis, and can affect things. She's just starting to discover this ability when an incident takes place pretty early on in the showers, where she gets her first period very late, which King kind of implied in his novel was kind of a thing with telekinetics. In here, it just seemed to be more of a point to just continue to ostracize Carrie and make her feel even more like an outsider, as well as to help give a little bit of a reason more for some of the characters to be set against her, but more on that later. So she has an issue there, and which is really the start of her telekinetic abilities. And due to the bullying, a popular girl feels a bit sorry for her for having taken part in some of that bullying, so convinces her boyfriend to take Carrie to the prom. And well, prom ends with the infamous scene there. She gets one of the bullies who is so against Carrie. She arranges for her to become prom queen, only to bucket of blood, and then all hell breaks loose as Carrie's powers run wild. Okay, so the movie still works pretty well. It's entertaining movie, and it's still you feel for Carrie and want to see her do well. But at the same time, knowing how it goes, the whole thing feels like a delightful train wreck of the creeping dread of her marching up towards the stage for what the viewers know is going to be the blood drop. It's a little heartbreaking, really. So, what works and what doesn't? Well, the villains, Particularly, I can't even remember one of her names. They kind of go by so quick, they don't really establish the antagonistic bully characters very well, so their names are not sticking with me. But one of them was actually played by a very young John Travolta in, I think, his first role, actually. So him and his girlfriend are the ones who are doing this. His girlfriend is the one who's primarily against her for reasons. I mean, she's awkward and is bad at gym class, so it doesn't really do a good job of showing exactly why this girl hates Carrie so much. I mean, there's a lot of graffiti around that seems to hint that she's behind it, and yeah, she gets a punishment in gym, then punishment because she picked on Carrie, but she translates that as Carrie's fault, which is the reason that she sets her up for the prom disaster. Now, from what I was reading on this, both her and John Travolta's character thought they were in a black comedy, so they were playing it over the top, and they thought they were being more bumbling, villainous comic characters. So the fact that when they actually saw the film later, they were quite surprised at how evil they seemed, which did work, but definitely they seem to be cartoonishly evil in this movie. And her mother is sort of the same way, with being so devoutly religious that she's one of the reasons Carrie's so ostracized, because she's to the point where she even believes that Carrie getting her period is a sign of sin, so she must be punished for that. It's Stephen King has always had a interesting relationship with religion in general, and this being one of his earliest books, it definitely comes out very heavy-handed. And in his first movie, well, even the actress Piper Laurie thought she couldn't believe her character was like this. So she also thought she was, and still actually thinks that her character is more from a black comedy than a horror film, because it was so over the top. But despite that, those over the top performances do still work. And despite that being just a little bit detracting for the bully characters, in general, it does very well. Now, Carrie's been adapted a couple times, and I've seen many of them. There's the made-for-TV remake, which I actually didn't think was bad, and the 2013, 2014 newest one, which isn't as good, but it definitely kind of kicks it up into overdrive for how extreme things get. But that one had the problem of Carrie was harder to see as the outcast in that one. So this one's still pretty much the definitive Carrie. Now, for how the movies end, all three of them end very differently, and I will say my favorite ending is actually probably the TV movie version, but I'm not going to spoil any of that, and I hope to actually get around to re-seeing that one. It's been many, many years since that one. In fact, I haven't seen this Carrie since, oh god, it's probably 10 plus years, so it's been a long time, so it was good to revisit this one. And I'm glad it was still as enjoyable as I remember it being. I do highly recommend it. I would give this one a 4 MacGuffins. It's not up to to 5 for me. It's not a personal favorite, but I do have a soft spot for it, and I was glad to see it hold up as well as it did. Although I will say the climax, some of the special effects do look a little weird, like with some fire hoses animate and start spraying people, but for me, it wasn't. It's a 70s movie. Some of the effects aren't going to be as great as they are these days. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. Don't know if there's anything else left that I haven't touched on, but over the top at times, but still a classic, still enjoyable. It's Carrie. I recommend it.